Hello and welcome to Odds Premier League Match Day 5. Tom Rennie, after taking some holidays to watch the international break, is back with us to analyze the Premier League. We left it with Arsenal beating Man United. I don't know if you remember, Tom.
No, I'm so busy thinking about the USA's big victory over Oman that I've totally forgotten what happened during the Premier League. But I hope it will come back to me during our conversation.
Okay, actually, Mexico, for instance, played against Uzbekistan, and your friend Raúl Jiménez scored a brace. I have it in my notes to ask you about that game and about Raúl Jiménez.
We all did the research, mate. We all did the research, okay? I know that.
Exactly. We do our job. So, guys, remember to write any question to Tom Rennie. Tell us your tips for this match day. And, of course, press the like and subscribe. Very close to the 20K subscribers, Tom. And now let's go on for the show. I like this emoticon from O'Brien. We will use it when we talk about Brighton and the Cherby. In the meantime, if you want to get a welcome bonus, we have an exclusive offer with 1xBet of 130%. Use the promo code ODDSPEDIAYOUTUBE. You have the link in the description and you can get this really good and sexy offer. The first game, Tom, is a good one to start the weekend. The Wolves, Liverpool, even if Liverpool, they are not playing in the Champions League, remember, they are playing on Saturday. Good victory against Aston Villa. Szoboszlai scored his first Premier League goal. Only drop points against Chelsea. Liverpool to win is around 1.5. Do you like?
I mean, 1.5, it's not the most spectacular offer you're going to get this weekend. I've picked out a couple of other things for this game that I think will make you some money. But, I mean, on the game itself, briefly, I think Wolverhampton Wanderers are going to be in real trouble. I've got to say this season, I think they're going to be in real trouble. I think that the team itself, I'm not really sure where the goals are coming from. Fabio Silva has proved repeatedly that he's not a Premier League striker. I think Mateus Cunha reminds me a lot of Traore, who they've just let go to Fulham after years and years of happening in every single game, multiple times, over and over again. João Gomes, Mario Lemina. Lemina's a championship player in central midfield. You know, you could go on here. And Max Kilman, good local lad. Craig Dawson never lets you down, but it screams a team that will stay up, but are going to stay up winning 10, 11 games, getting over the line in April, May time. The surprising thing about Wolves in the last game was the goals. The fact that they scored 2 against Crystal Palace. The less surprising thing was they conceded 3. And I think that's what concerns me for them going into this game. You look at Liverpool this season, scored in every game, all 4 fixtures. You take away the Chelsea game on the opening day. I was at that match. I thought they could have scored 2 or 3. 3 against Bournemouth, 2 against Newcastle, 3 against Aston Villa. I think Liverpool are kicking into a bit of a gear here. Defensively, they are still a bit suspect, but offensively, there aren't many forward lines as good as Liverpool at this moment in time. You look at Salah, who hasn't quite hit his top form as yet, but I think he will this season. There were signs against Villa that suggested that, scoring a goal and his energy in that game, he's going to come back to it. Darwin Nunez, Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo. It's a ludicrous front line they have. And even in midfield, I think that people like Alexis McAllister and Szoboszlai, they look like a team that are going to try and score more goals than you every single week. And that is how I see this game. So 1.5, not great. Let's make that Liverpool to win with a -1 handicap. That brings you in around 2-1. Now, that isn't too bad here. And I see them winning at least 2, maybe 3-0. Comfortable victory for Liverpool here. I've not picked it out as a top tip, but you could also be looking at a -2 handicap. That's 3-0 or above. That brings you in at around 3.1, 3.2. That's not too bad here. It's a bit daring. It's not my top tip, but it's certainly something I'd look at if you feel confident in Liverpool. The other thing I'd look at is Liverpool to score 3 goals. That's over 2.5 goals. However you want to slice that. That comes in at 2.2. So that's them just to score that many goals, I think is almost a given in a game like this against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So all sorts of big Liverpool win, but those are my top tips.
I like it. I like it. Luis Diaz, Nunez, McAllister, all coming from South America, playing international games there, qualifiers for the World Cup. O'Brien, Liverpool to win 2-0, for instance, and we have people from Uganda, from Bulgaria. There is someone telling 3 out of 4 ACCAs. Tom, I haven't noticed that.
Yeah,
that good.
The only one I didn't win was the one where Fulham equalised against Arsenal. That's the only one of the 4 I didn't win this season, which still annoys me to this minute that didn't come in.
Looking forward to listening to the 5th one. In the meantime, we have Aston Villa, Crystal Palace. Not the greatest starts, I would say, for Aston Villa, with 2 heavy defeats away in Newcastle and in Liverpool. At home, they've only played against Everton and they destroyed them. On the other hand, I would say brilliant start for Crystal Palace. The last game was a victory against Wolves. I think 7 points in the first 4 games is brilliant for a team like Crystal Palace.
Yeah, but in the end, they'll finish 12th and will be irrelevant to most of the season. So, they're not going to be in a relegation battle because at the very least, the 3 that have come up will finish below them. In terms of Aston Villa, the mad thing about Villa is that what do we expect from an Unai Emery team? We expect solidity, we expect close games, we expect them to win in the end. But if you look at the kind of back end of last season, certainly start of this season, 5-1 thumping against Newcastle, where they probably could have scored more, though deserved to lose that game in the end. A 4-0 victory at home, 3-0 victory away, and then a loss last week against Liverpool by 3-0. First time they're not scored this season. The Villa matches so far this year have brought us goals, goals, goals. That is not something anyone would have seen with their current manager. I don't think it will last, but I do think it will last into this game. You look at the goal threat that Aston Villa have. I think Moussa Diaby has been just awesome in his first 4 games in the Premier League. Looks like a real star in the making there. I think John McGinn playing further forward gives them creativity and bite in their forward line. And I've discussed to you at length previously my admiration for Ollie Watkins, who I think is a superb striker. And obviously one that the attack can be built around with this manager. So bring that all together. A lot of positivity, despite some up and down results for Villa this season. For Crystal Palace, I think the issue for Crystal Palace, which is weird, we didn't see this coming in the Wolves game. I went under and it went 3-2. Did not see that coming at all. But away from that, you look at the other games, I think the issue is creativity. The issue is goals. And I know the exception that proves the rule is the victory over Wolverhampton Wanderers, but I still don't see Odsonne Edouard, Jeffrey Schlupp, Jordan Ayew as a front 3 scoring that many goals. And so far this season, despite a really good performance in the second half against Wolves, I've still not seen the Eze that I know that's coming in central midfield for Crystal Palace. The creativity, the drive, the goal-scoring acumen, I think we're going to get it consistently. I think he's going to be an absolute superstar in maybe 3 to 5 years from now. But at the moment, we're not seeing it with great consistency. So for this game, I'm going to go against type here, just looking at the recent form book and looking at recent Villa performances. I do still think both teams to score. I think both teams score in this game and take over 2.5 goals in the game. That's 2-1, that's 3-1, that's goals at both ends, which I think you're going to get here. That brings you in at 2.2. Now, any double your money bet on mid-table Premier League teams, I think is always worth going for. If you are going to pick a winner, I would pick for Aston Villa. If you go Villa win and over 2 goals in this game, you're going to come in at 1.8. Now, that's, again, around 2-1. Villa just to win, it's not sexy enough in terms of the odds, considering they're not massive favourites. So spice it up with goals. Look at the recent Villa games. Goals are a coming, I think, judging on the form. And so that's what I'll go for here.
Plenty of options then if you are backing Aston Villa. Also, Harry, Villa to win and Watkins to score 3.4. It looks also like a good bet. Aston Villa to win and over 2.5 goals for Chinonso. And Awan is telling us that you are the goat, Tom, or the sheep. I cannot see properly the emoticon. I guess it's a goat.
Yeah, it's hard to know, but I mean, I'm not the goat. I'm more like a rabbit.
Alpaca. A rabbit.
Persistent rabbit. That's what I like to think of myself as.
A llama. Next game, Fulham, Luton Town. Luton Town to lose. This is the first thing that we have to say is 1.7. And we have Raúl Jiménez. I'm sure you watched that Mexico-Uzbekistan where he scored a couple of goals preparing for the World Cup in Mexican soil. Fulham, 4 points, 1 victory. Luton Town, 0 points. The odds are not very high, of course, for Fulham to win, but still it's kind of all right, no?
Yeah, I mean, they're all right. Look, Fulham are going to win this game at 1.74. It's a pretty safe bet this weekend. And again, if you're nudging up towards 2-1, I think you'll probably find that around 2s the closer we get to the weekend. I think when you get the Fulham team news from the manager and you find out some of the players that are missing, of which there are a few, I do think that this might edge up towards 2-1. If you can get that, I would take it. You know, in terms of Fulham, the Man City game goes the way a lot of Man City games go. They were well in that game up to half-time. The decision to give the ACCA goal was obviously disgraceful. And in the second half, as the game went on, they just got tired, they got worn, and the Fulham team this year has been kind of taken apart by sales and injuries. The bench is not strong. And apart from Traore, who came on, I think even bringing on Willian now as a faded force, the kind of player we expected Fulham to get at the start of last season, I've got concerns about Fulham. Again, they won't get relegated because the 3 that came up are so poor, but I do have some concerns about Fulham. I don't see a great deal of quality here. And you mentioned Raúl Jiménez. Look, 3 years ago, he was spectacular. Probably one of the best strikers in the Premier League. The thing with David Luiz and the horrible skull fracture, he hasn't come back the same player. I appreciate he scored a couple of goals in that high-scoring draw against Uzbekistan for Mexico, but Mexico are going through a tough time at this moment. I think Uzbekistan are 73rd or 74th in the world rankings. You know, to not even beat them, there are concerns there, I think. So if you can't score against Uzbekistan, you can't score against anybody. But maybe that counts for Luton Town as well, who they've lost every game. They're not going to win many. I'd still think if you can get the odds now, bet on them to get under 20 points. They put on a bit of a fight against West Ham, if you recall that game from a couple of weeks ago now. And maybe at 2-1, should have had a penalty in the last minute. I think they should have done for handball against James Ward-Prowse. But across the piece, across the game, they were miles behind an upper mid-table team in West Ham. Morris and Adebayo are basically the same striker. It's like playing 2 big geezers up front in 1995. Barkley Nakamba-Chong, I'm not sure what the balance is there. Ross Barkley looks well off it. And I thought Giles on the left, a few decent crosses, but apart from that, it's not a Premier League team. It's not a Premier League squad. Go Luton to lose every single week. If you want to spice this up a little bit, put a handicap on it. That's the secondary tip for me, is that Fulham win with a -1 handicap, brings you around 2.5. But just to win at 1.74, I think it will go up. So wait for your moment. Strike when the iron's hot. Go as close to 2-1 as you can get.
We had a comment. Keep it simple. Fulham to win. Everyone agrees here. Fulham to win. Johnny Chai, a 1. Fulham to win the first half. Well, there are plenty of options, all leading to Fulham to win. Next game, in my opinion, this is the best game in the weekend. Man United, Brighton, because we are coming from that defeat against Arsenal. Ten Hag was complaining about the offside. Everything changed in a couple of minutes in the Emirates. Then we have a lot of team news around Anthony. We have, of course, Man United with already 2 defeats this season, and we know how dangerous Brighton could be. 1 defeat this season at home against West Ham, playing in the counter-attack, and I could see danger perhaps, or like turmoil in Manchester, because they face Brighton and then they have to travel to Munich in the Champions League. This game is very important.
It is very important. And I just want to read you the list of players that are likely out for Manchester United in this game. Luke Shaw missing. Tiro Malacia is missing. Rafael Varane is missing. Lisandro Martinez is missing. We don't think Sofian Amrabat's going to be available. Mason Mount is missing. Anthony, probably suspended. Tom Heaton, I'll throw him in there as well, just because there's no real backup goalkeeper at the club right now. So a lot of issues at Manchester United in terms of getting players fit. We don't know about Jadon Sancho as well, whether he's even going to be selected for a massive 9-man bench. The way that's been handled has been terrible at the moment from both Erik ten Hag and Jadon Sancho. So a lot of issues for Manchester United. And the way they played in every game, I was at the Arsenal game, as you know, and I thought they were abysmal, really. They played like Luton would do at Emirates Stadium, but they had the quality on the break to maybe make Arsenal pay on a couple of occasions. But the way they played was so, I always think this when I watch my team play. If you're going to go into a game, cede the ball and just try and nick victory, you've got to do it. Because if you don't do it, it looks appalling and there will be a real long fallout from it, because on the eyeball test, they played absolutely dreadfully. If they'd have won that game, it's a perfect away performance. But that's the high wire tactics that you do in games like that. But in general, they're pretty poor. Defensive this season, pretty porous. Is it going to be Lindelof, who should be fit, and Harry Maguire? Is it going to be Johnny Evans? Either way, I think there's a lack of confidence in either of those two players to be starting a game like this against Brighton. And offensively, hopefully Rasmus Højlund will be fit. He looked like he made a difference when he came on against Arsenal. Looks big and bullish and strong and a proper physical number 9 for Man United, who should make a difference for them. But then Rashford on one side and who on the other? Garnacho maybe? I don't know. At the moment, it doesn't make a great deal of sense. And the concerns about central midfield, I think, are still worth a longer discussion than we have time for as well. In terms of Brighton, they played really well against West Ham, lest we forget that. They lost that game, but played really well. The next game at home against Newcastle, I thought Newcastle would follow the West Ham, Everton, Fulham tactics that's given a few results to teams at the Amex this season. They tried to go toe-to-toe with Brighton. Don't go toe-to-toe with Brighton. Don't try and press them in their penalty area. Don't try and push 6 or 7 players forward on them. They're going to muller you. And that's exactly what they did. I hope Evan Ferguson's fit. He pulled out of the Republic of Ireland games this week. I've not got an update on that for you at the moment. So I'm assuming he's not going to be available to start the game. That would mean Danny Welbeck gets the nod up front, more than likely. And there's been some issues with him as well. But a slight muscle injury is not the same as what Evan Ferguson's had. So that makes a big difference here. If Ferguson's playing, I'd start to edge towards Brighton. But the information I have at the moment that he's not playing, it changes my bet slightly. So what I'm going to look at here is a Manchester United win. I think Brighton have the majority possession. If you can look at possession stats and take a 60-40 in Brighton's favour, I would take it. I also think Man U are going to play like the away team in this game. But if you look at their games this season, when they've won, Forest most notably, they have won through outscoring the opponent. And I just feel like there's goals in this game. So, Man United win, because Man United always win, even when they don't deserve it at home. Take over 2.5 goals in the game. That brings you in at 2.75. This screams 2-1 Manchester United with a late breakaway Rashford goal to me. A few other things I'd pick out for you. Again, I see goals in this game, so I picked out a few things with goals. Both teams to score and over 3.5 goals in the match, 2-2, 3-2, is 2.25. It's a little risky for relatively low rewards, but again, I think there are goals in this game. If you fancy Brighton just to win, the odds are pretty decent. Around 3-1 a couple of days ago. It's now 3.25. That might continue to rise to around 4-1. I wouldn't discount that whatsoever. To spice it up even further, Brighton win and both teams score brings you in around 4.5. So I'm saying Man United win and over 2.5. If you fancy Brighton, good money to be made. It's a gut call here.
Well, most of us are going for both teams to score. I think we have it pretty clear, as we can see in the comments, although most of the people are backing Brighton with a double chance. They are the underdog, for instance, but backing Brighton. Actually, Casanova asked, did Tom just say Man United to win? Yes, he did. Screams 2-1. Remember this, screams 2-1. Next week, we will see if it's Man United to win or Brighton to win, but it should be at least both teams to score. Brilliant game, this one, Man United. Brighton and also Tottenham, Sheffield United should be okay, I think. Interesting to watch because we are enjoying these new Spurs, and then posted 10 points, scoring plenty of goals. Son scored a hat-trick. Only Richarlison is not scoring with Brazil, with Tottenham. No matter which team you put Richarlison in, he's not scoring. But Tottenham, they are, Tom, 11 goals. They should continue this with Sheffield United, no? Because they've conceded already 7 goals. So this could be a good high-scoring game.
Yeah, I think you pick out the perfect stats there, the 11 and 7. I think this screams goals, 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 and it also screams a Tottenham Hotspur victory. Like most people, I've enjoyed watching Tottenham, something I've not been able to say for some years covering Tottenham Hotspur. I think that the forward line against Burnley was really perfectly set without Richarlison, Son through the centre, Kulusevski, Maddison, and Manor Solomon behind. I'd expect, unless there are injuries that I'm currently unaware of, that to be the lineup again with Richarlison on the subs bench. There's fluidity, there's movement. It allows Udogie and Porro to get forward. Just a real lot to enjoy about the balance of this Tottenham Hotspur team. And the good thing for them as well is they've really not really played anyone so far. You know, you might say Manchester United. I would say it's a pretty good time to play Man United right now. Beyond that, Burnley, Sheffield United, Bournemouth, decent start for Ange Postecoglou in terms of caliber of opponent. And he's been able to wipe the floor with all of them at this moment in time. So it's another game this weekend I expect them to win. I think that Sheffield United have provided an unexpected goal threat, certainly in the last game against Everton. I like Cameron Archer. His first goal against Everton was really impressive. I think that Harmer in midfield, great for Coventry last season, gives them a dynamism in the centre they didn't have previously. But beyond that, I mean, look, it's a championship team. They'll be back in the championship next season, and they're going to lose this game. So what do you pick out? Well, look, go high scoring here, but I think a big Tottenham win. So 1.31 is not worth your time. You're going to put a real sizable lump on that to make any money. Look at your handicap market. Tottenham win with a -2 handicap. 2-0, 3-0. Can you not all see that? I certainly can. That's 3-1. 3-1 for Spurs to win 3-0 in a game like this or more, I think is really nice. And that's also 4-1 as well. So 3-1 and 4-1, which again, scores I quite like here. If you like the -3 handicap, which I do actually, it's not my top tip, but it's my secondary tip here, brings you in at 5.5. -3 at 5.5. A 4-0 victory for Tottenham. I just like the sound of it. Look at individual players too. Son Heung-min playing up front to have 2 shots on target. You get that. For a pretty decent tipple around about 2.5 this morning. 1.8 to 2.5. And Son to score, as you just saw there, just under 2-1 as well. Son will score. Tottenham will win. Money to be made there.
And Maddison, for instance, to assist could be added also in the mix. According to Harry, Tottenham to win 4-0. Great tip, -3. So not a lot of confidence on Sheffield United. And at the same time, wow, we have plenty of good games at 3 p.m. West Ham, Man City. Man City destroying every team. Haaland already with a hat-trick against Fulham. He also scored with Norway. Oof, sorry, Tom, for your West Ham. And they put a fight. Could be interesting, at least a game with Man City involved.
Yeah, look, I do think in terms of West Ham, terrific start to this season. David Moyes has gone back to the ways that got him European qualification, a Europa League semi-final, which is low block, attack at pace, forget the ball, and try and be dynamic when you get the ball. Don't keep it. Don't try and keep possession. Look for the through ball immediately. It's actually a game plan that I think suits Lucas Paqueta as well. You know, weirdly, trying to keep the ball a lot for West Ham last season, which wasn't working. Trying to incorporate Declan Rice, who didn't work in what Moyes would usually like to do. I think it was doing more harm than good. And the way they are releasing Jarrod Bowen, the way they're releasing Mikel Antonio, the way Ben Rama is always an option for them going forward. Emerson overlapping Ben Rama has been really interesting too. The corners of James Ward-Prowse, who should be fit. Lots to like about West Ham right now. And I think Edson Alvarez playing just in front of that defensive pairing, dropping back into a 3 when they haven't got the ball. He's the perfect player for a David Moyes team. He's the player that he wanted when Declan Rice used to do that before Declan Rice became, you know, a different sort of player and then got sold to Arsenal. So I think there's a chance for West Ham. I'm not going to back it, but I certainly think that West Ham at 7-1, I don't think that's crazy. I don't think it's crazy. I think there's a couple of games in recent history where West Ham have pushed Man City really close. There was a 2-2 draw at the back end of the previous season. Where I think West Ham were impressive. And look at the form of Jarrod Bowen right now. Jarrod Bowen to score any time is a decent bet for West Ham, as is West Ham to score from a corner, considering if Ward-Prowse is playing, they're going to score corners against most teams this season. They'll score 12 to 15 corners this campaign. And to win a game, I think they've got to score at least one corner. So look out for that in this particular game. But I am, of course, going to go for Man City because you have to. And I think at 1.5, probably avoid that. I'd look here at both teams scoring. I think West Ham score from a corner, but City go on to win the game. You get that at 2.75. Man City and both teams score. Nearly doubles what you get just for Man City win. I really do fancy West Ham to score in this game. I think City pushing everyone upfield, West Ham on the break, getting a corner, maybe two. I'd certainly look at that, but of course go Man City win. So near double what they give you for Man City win. Just over double with both teams to score. The draw market. I don't normally pick out too many draws, and there's a reason they're always around 4 to 5 to 1. But this game has finished in a draw recently. And if West Ham can score 2, I think they can stop Man City scoring 3. I know that's a bit wild, but look at the draw market at just 5 to 1. I do like that. And as always, the Haaland market. Look at the hat trick. It's around 9 to 1, but 2 goals is 3.75. Haaland to score twice is always something I'll pick out on this show.
He rested in the first game for Norway, and then he played and scored together with Odegaard. There is a lot of confidence on West Ham among our audience. So perhaps we see West Ham upsetting Man City and putting this Premier League a little bit more interesting. For Harry, City to win 2-1. City to go unbeaten this season. Well, it could be, of course. By the way, Tom, have you watched Scamacca's goals with Atalanta before the international break?
I did see the second one, I think, that someone sent me on social media. It's a brilliant goal, but Scamacca, God bless him, he's obviously got an amazing shot on him, right? Everyone knows this about Scamacca, but the rest of the game wasn't good enough for English football, sadly.
Well, both goals actually were brilliant for Scamacca. I thought about you when I watched the highlights of that game. And the late kickoff is Newcastle Brentford on Saturday. I would say bad start for Newcastle. Last season they lost 5 games. This season they've already lost 3 in 4 games. So not the great start that they were thinking about, and they are playing AC Milan in the Champions League next week. This could be a tricky one also at home against Brentford.
Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of Newcastle, I love the fact it's one of those stats can prove anything, right? The teams they have played have been Brighton away, where I think they were very poor, to be fair, and got the tactics totally wrong, but also Liverpool at home, and it was a freak victory for Liverpool, and Man City away. So it's not like they've had the easiest, like Tottenham Hotspur start to the season. They've had probably the toughest set of fixtures of anybody in the Premier League. And even the Villa game on paper looked like a real tough one. And they, of course, smashed Villa in the end. So I still have confidence in Newcastle. I think I wouldn't go too daring here with the way they have played. I've got some slightly more daring bets for you, but my top tip for this is just take Newcastle win at 1.6. That's already risen from 1.5 a couple of days ago. I think, again, the later you bet on things, the more things tend to drift. And so before you get the team news, after Eddie Howe has spoken on Thursday, you might get this for 1.8, 1.9. So check the market and keep live checking the market to see where this gets to. The closer it gets to 2 to 1, I would snap it. In terms of Brentford, briefly, I think still no Ivan Toney, obviously, still no David Raya. Brian Mbeumo has been terrific at the start of this season. But, you know, at some point, I think Brentford are going to come a cropper. I think that they have the second lowest wage bill in the league behind Luton, who obviously have the lowest wage bill. They could have lost against Bournemouth at home in the last game. A late Mbeumo goal got them something from that game. In the end, I think this squad will struggle. I think they'll stay up for reasons previously discussed, but I think they will struggle, and they will struggle in this game. I think they will hold on for a long time, but as it goes on, Newcastle can make their changes. Brentford have no bench of note. Newcastle can bring on Callum Wilson. They can bring on Harvey Barnes. They can bring on some real quality in the last 10 to 15 minutes. So I think Brentford will keep Newcastle out for a decent amount of time here. I'd be looking here, if you want to make some money and be a bit daring, level at half-time. As the game goes on and Newcastle can make their changes, Newcastle win at full-time. I found that at best odds this morning at 4.5. And you look at the way that Newcastle have started the last couple of games. You look at how savage they are in the last 20 minutes of games. Take draw at halftime, Newcastle win 4.5. You can also look at goals being scored between the 80th and 90th minute, level until that point. Game to be level after 80 minutes, and Newcastle to go on to win it also brings you in around about 4.5, 5.5. If you do it live, if you're a live bettor, you'll get some really good odds on that in the in-play if you want to get involved in that as well.
Great. A lot of bets or tips to bet on this Newcastle Brentford, even if some of our audience, they are going for a Brentford surprise. Here, Tom is backing Newcastle. Really interesting group, by the way, in the Champions League for Newcastle. Let's see if they come out alive of the group of death or death, actually. Next games on Sunday, talking about deaths. Chelsea playing against Bournemouth. 2 victories, 2 points only for Iraola, your friend Iraola, draws against Brentford and against West Ham. But we have to talk about Chelsea. Of course, we mentioned in the previous video, be careful with that game against Nottingham Forest, and indeed they lost it. It looks like a meme now, this Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, briefly on Bournemouth, I just have no faith in Andoni Iraola pouncing around in his roll neck, trying to make it seem like he's the new Guardiola. I think he'll be gone by Christmas, and I think that in every single game he has made some real basic coaching errors. For example, the Tottenham game, he took off his best 2 players because he'd obviously planned it in advance. And against Brentford at 2-1 up with a few minutes to go, should you go a bit more Moyes, a bit more Allardyce, a bit more, close the game out? He was still trying to score a third and pushing his team upfield. And what happened? 2-2. So issues with Bournemouth, but certainly look at this game within the spectrum of even Chelsea can beat Bournemouth. I think that with Chelsea, it's going to come good, man. It is going to come good. I can't see this continuing forever. The quality of player, the fact the transfer window has closed, the quality of manager, all of it, the ability and time to coach some of these players without European games in midweek, I feel like it is going to come good. And the fact that Pochettino can get back to doing what he does best, that is coaching footballers and not be finding out in press conferences that his manager has bought him another player, I think that will make a big difference. So if I was going to go for a Bournemouth win, I would say high scoring, because if you look at their games this season, all but one, there's been goals at both ends. And against Tottenham, frankly, they lost for 2. They could have lost for 4 or 5. So you look at the over 2.5 market. But I'm going to go for Chelsea to win. Chelsea just to win at the moment at 1.8 might be worth taking if you don't feel particularly adventurous. I would certainly look at Chelsea just to win. But if you look at the Chelsea performances this season, there's not a great deal of goals in them. Just 1 goal in the game against Nottingham Forest. Just 1 goal for them in the game against West Ham and 1 goal for them in the game against Liverpool. Of course, they did thrash Luton, but I don't really count that in my median. So Chelsea to win, under 2.5 goals. That's 1-0. That's 2-0. It's 5-1. I think Chelsea are going to keep the ball for 90 minutes. They're going to score a goal in each half and win this comfortably. So that is my top tip for this one, Chelsea and under 2.5. Couple of other things to pick out. If you fancy the Chelsea debacle to continue, feel free. If you've got a gut feeling on Bournemouth to take it, around 4.5 to 5. The draw at 4s is also quite nice. But Chelsea winning Raheem Sterling scores also makes that 1.81 slightly more interesting as well. So I would pick Chelsea low scoring.
Well, Hassan is telling us actually Sterling to score at any time, and then some people, Adam or Johnny, both seems to score no. Corello saying that Bournemouth will score in this game. Well, let's see if Chelsea finally win a football game. They should win this one. And also on Sunday we have an interesting one, Everton Arsenal, even if Arsenal, they are playing Champions League against PSV, but they are playing on a Sunday and they should take, I guess, the 3 points from Goodison Park. They lost both games at home with no goals scored by Everton. It was against Fulham and Wolves. Another defeat 2-0 for Everton, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to waste too much time on Everton here. I think that Beto looks like he might be able to give them a goal-scoring option they didn't have previously, but he's going to take a few weeks to settle in the Premier League. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, don't plan around him anymore. I think he is finished at the top level, unfortunately, with his injury issues. You look at their games, no goal scored, no goal scored, no goal scored, 2 goals scored, but didn't win. So, you know, you can score 2 against Sheffield United. They're not going to score against Arsenal. For Arsenal, goal-scoring threat all over the field. I think that there is a I think at some point soon, Kai Havertz will drop down to the bench. Someone else goes into that midfield role. I'd push Declan Rice slightly further forward and try and bring someone else into defensive midfield. The trouble is Partey being out, El Neni not being available. There's a gap in the squad for Arsenal right now in terms of midfield because they wasted all their money on Kai Blooming Havertz, who is just simply not good enough to play for a team that are going to try and win the Premier League. So that's my only issue for Arsenal, but it's a light one. Saka's fit, Martinelli is fit, Gabi Jesus I expect to start. Arsenal win this game. 1.5 isn't actually too bad for Arsenal, so I might even just take that conservatively. But my top tip here is Everton do not score, Arsenal do win. So Arsenal win to 0, I found for 2.75. That's 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, whatever. Don't ever at this moment in time back Everton to score a goal. Do back Arsenal to win. It feels like a no-brainer to me.
Totally agree. Arsenal to win. Keep it simple for most of the people. This game screams Arsenal win for Tyson. This is a safe bet for Hassan. And the last game, Nottingham Forest, Burnley. It looks like a safe bet. Also going for Burnley to lose 0 points. Worst team together with Luton Town. So far, 3 defeats, 11 goals conceded, and Forest very competitive against the big guns. Let's see if they are able also to beat the small teams like Burnley, no?
Yeah, I mean, great goal threat this season for Nottingham Forest. Scored against Arsenal, a couple against Sheffield United, a couple against Manchester United, scored against Chelsea, didn't need to go for the second because that was enough to win that game. And Taiwo Awoniyi didn't score against Chelsea, but it's 7 in 8. It's pretty impressive back end of last season, start of this. So goal-scoring threat, plus when they take him off, they bring on Chris Wood, and he can perform a similar, slightly downgraded role for them. So there's good rotation, there's good balance, and I think Nottingham Forest win this game. I think if you take them just to win at 2.25, there's money to be made there. I can't see anything for Burnley in this. But I'd certainly be looking at various goal markets. Why? Because look at Burnley's results. A 3-0 loss against Man City, we can write that off. 3-1 loss against Aston Villa. They look like scoring, but conceded almost every Villa attack. And that was a similar story with Tottenham as well. Always going forward. That's great. You've conceded 5. So I think both teams will score in this match. Take Forest to win and both teams to score at 4.3, 4.4. You can just take Forest at 2.25. But again, I think goals in this match is what I'd be looking at here. Take a Forest win. You can look at the goals market. Over 2.5 is 1.83. Over 3.5 goals in this game, I really like at 3.25. Best I found it this morning. I think that might rise as well. So high scoring, Forest win, both teams score.
Over 2.5 goals, also for Corello. Forest to win, keep it simple, is good. Actually, this Nottingham Forest to win and both teams to score is really good, 4.3. Tom, moment has arrived to see your safe bet first.
A few options for safe bet this week, but Tottenham at home against Sheffield United. Surely they're going to win that comfortably. Keep it safe at 1.3. Decent lump on that. You'll make some money.
This time is not Man City to win. They have to travel to your London stadium. They might be trouble. And finally, your ACCA. Let's see if we have 4 out of 5.
Oh, it's been so annoying, the ACCAs this season. I would have got them all right by that late goal for Paulinho against Arsenal. Another treble for this week. There's 3 pretty decent bets in here. Man City not going in it. I don't have the confidence fully in the West Ham game, but I do have it in Liverpool winning at Wolverhampton Wanderers, Tottenham beating Sheffield United, and I can't see a scenario where Everton are able to beat Arsenal. Take the Gunners 3-1. I really like that treble.
And this is the treble from Tom Rennie. Thanks for the tips. Thanks, Tom. I tell you myself as well. Thanks, Tom Rennie. Thanks, everyone, for watching, for following us. Next week, we have more Premier League. Don't forget, if you enjoy our videos, it's for free. Just press the like and subscribe. We don't charge for this. Bye-bye.